It's 9 o'clock, and so I think we're going to get started. And I want to welcome everyone to the Dean's Briefing. And I will actually thank you all for coming on this Tuesday morning. This is the first event in a series of events that are part of our annual workshop this year. Rather than having one large half-day event, we divided it up into different segments throughout the week. And so thank you for joining us for this first portion. And I will go ahead and introduce Dean Wojtek Hodźko-Zajko.
Thank you, Charlotte. Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for the Graduate College Workshop. We're kicking off this morning with a review of graduate education over the past year. It's been a different year and a wild ride, but I'm pleased to be able to give you a synopsis. But then over the next 3 days, we will have a wide variety of different sessions which will expand on many of the things that I'll be talking about this morning. And I hope that to the degree that your schedule permits, you'll attend some of those sessions and you'll have an opportunity to meet with some of the amazing and wonderful colleagues that I have in the Graduate College who have really done a tremendous job responding to the many challenges in the pandemic. Next slide, please. There we go. So in reviewing the Graduate College activity and graduate education activity over the past year, we've set up a series of slides that are all structured in the same way. We discuss a need, how we responded, and the potential long-term implications for what we did this year for future years and how we're going to emerge out of this pandemic, hopefully soon, but whenever that happens. Next slide, please. So the first thing we really had to do over the past year was ensure that we could sustain graduate education at the level of excellence that we expect from the University of Illinois. During a year of unimagined challenges, we transferred all of our services online almost without missing a beat. We shifted not only to working from home, but to living in a global public health crisis. As many of you, we juggled caregiving duties and personal needs with work. But despite these disruptions, we maintained the daily functions of the Graduate College, we met our deadlines, upheld the turnaround times on our processes, and I believe we preserved the quality of our services. And then finally, we moved house in the middle of the year, relocating the entire Graduate College to our new location on Green Street. We provided essential equipment to our staff to work from home. We increased the frequency of our internal leadership meetings and our all-staff meetings. And early in the pandemic, we created a daily check-in system to ensure that people stayed connected. And we organized virtual coffee hours and other social events to try to promote lighthearted interactions to manage stress. In the long term, we're committed to continuing to provide online services until it is completely safe to resume in-person activities. And we do this for the protection of our students, our staff, our faculty, and our community. We will continue to cross-train employees to maximize our ability to provide continuity of services, and we are exploring carefully what operations will continue to be online or in hybrid format even after the pandemic, if that enables us to serve our students and graduate education better. Next slide, please. One of the biggest needs we had was to communicate with our graduate students, with graduate faculty, and with graduate programs. This was especially vital as we moved into the shelter-in-place requirement a year ago. The speed at which new and critical information was unfolding and needed to be disseminated was faster than ever before. We were fortunate that we had established well-oiled communication channels well before the pandemic. Our GradLife blogs and our emails increased their frequency to weekly rather than monthly, and we made a point of focusing on topics related to student well-being during the early transition period and throughout the pandemic. We also worked hard to collaborate with public affairs on the COVID-19 messages, mass mails, and web pages that were developed by campus. Whenever a mass mail went out to all students, we were consulted to check that it was relevant and appropriately worded for graduate students. And almost always, we sent a separate message to graduate students, reminding them of the implication of the mass mail that had come from the chancellor or the provost. In the long term, we continue to believe it is critical to communicate with frequency, clarity, and consistency in moments of crisis. We will continue to review and approve communications both within our college and within public affairs. And we believe that these improvements will last beyond the pandemic and improve our ability to provide accurate and consistent messages to our students and programs. Let me deviate from the script just a little bit and say, frankly, it's a challenge to get students, whether they're grad students or undergraduate students, to open and read their emails. And for that reason, we also used our graduate mentor communication strategy to try to communicate to students through their graduate advisors and mentors, believing that perhaps this is an alternative route to get a message through to a student that is not regularly checking their email and not regularly reading and responding to mass mails from the campus. Next slide, please. The disruptions of the pandemic necessitated many policy and process changes to accommodate student needs. We undertook or spearheaded changes to many policies and procedures to accommodate the new reality for students and departments, while also maintaining consistent criteria and standards. For example, we shifted to allowing virtual dissertation defenses and accepting a much wider range of digital signatures on thesis paperwork and on examination forms. In the earliest days of the pandemic, we increased communication with our committees, sending weekly updates to our graduate dean's committee, to the graduate college executive committee, and to our student committee, SAGE. And we also convened these committees more frequently through Zoom meetings to seek their guidance and input at critical decision points. In the long term, we're going to continue to explore student record and academic policy issues and how they've been impacted by COVID-19. We will imagine that there will be greater flexibility moving forward with respect to the regulations requiring examinations, thesis defenses, and I think that there are some elements of the pandemic that will remain in the future because they enable us to conduct the business of the graduate college more efficiently, and perhaps they enable students to reach a greater number of people when they're presenting their dissertation defenses and so on. Next slide, please. The pandemic dramatically changed students' experiences in unpredictable ways. The abrupt shift in the early months of the pandemic posed immediate financial hardship for many of our students, as well as disrupting their planned academic and scholarly activities. As the pandemic continues, there will be longer-term impacts on students' academic progress as students try to balance personal needs or adjust their academic and research plans. In response to these challenges, when Congress passed the CARES Act, we devised and implemented a graduate component of the campus emergency grant strategy in the spring. We distributed more than $2 million in emergency grant funding in March and April, and subsequently in the summer, we also organized a summer supplemental block grant program that distributed more than $4 million worth of funding to graduate students. One of the things that I am most proud of is that the campus made the decision that all graduate students, international, domestic, DACA, non-documented, doctoral, master's, online, traditional program students were eligible for financial support during the pandemic. This was only possible because the campus committed institutional funds to fill in where the federal money was not permitted to be allocated. Another thing that I'm really proud of is that campus came together to figure out a way to pay graduate assistants and fellows who were unable to come to the country this past fall. So we had many international students who returned home at the beginning of the pandemic, and because of visa regulations, because of pandemic-related travel restrictions, they were ready to continue their studies virtually. And the question was, could we appoint them to an assistantship or a fellowship? With a tremendous amount of hard work from payroll employees and others on campus, we figured out a way to do this, and we had a very significant number of international students who continue to be on the payroll despite the fact that they've not been able to come back to the United States. Long term, the impact of the pandemic will be felt by departments and students for years to come. The delays affecting student progress and time to degree, as well as potential long-term impacts on careers and hiring, are not going to disappear soon. We don't know in advance exactly how this impact will play out. So a crucial project for the next year or two will be to continue to assess student needs as they change and the long-term impacts of the pandemic become clearer. Next slide, please. Even before the pandemic, several recent reports and national studies reported that there's a growing national concern for students' mental health, and particularly among doctoral students. The pandemic just added to the urgency of this topic. Addressing student mental health issues and challenges cannot be accomplished by a single unit. It requires a multi-pronged effort by many different groups across the campus. We partnered with colleagues to share information about resources available, not only for students experiencing acute crises, but also about how to offset crises through prevention strategies that focus on work-life balance, self-care, and physical activity. In our newsletters, videos, and blogs, we shared information and told the stories of students who had discovered ways to manage their own personal stressors. In the long term, we need to develop and disseminate flexible and innovative programming, communications, and mentoring to support the health, well-being, and progress of our graduate students. We are excited to be participating in the campus-wide conversation that is currently underway to consider how best to address mental health and wellness issues for all of our students. Next slide, please. Our diversity programs have historically relied on in-person interactions to recruit graduate students from traditionally underrepresented racial and ethnic groups. The inability to provide in-person programming this year created some challenges for us in building that community. Our diversity, equity, inclusion team members took the opportunity to re-envision all of our recruitment programs. Aspire, Community of Scholars, and the Summer Predoctoral Institute were all delivered using alternative modes that included both synchronous and asynchronous components. The year before the pandemic, 163 Aspire participants took part in the Aspire program. This year, 436 students took advantage of the virtual program that we called Discover Illinois. Our Summer Predoctoral Institute participation also increased by 55%, with 336 students participating this year. So I'm pleased to say that we were able to deliver programming to underrepresented student populations, both undergraduate students thinking of going to graduate school, as well as doctoral students who had made a commitment to come to Illinois and wanted to come early in order to increase their understanding of the culture of their department and graduate education in general. We are committed to continuing to offer this programming either in virtual or in face-to-face mode as soon as possible. From all indication, it appears that this summer's diversity programming will need to continue to be virtual, but my team is working on a number of exciting and creative ways where we think we may actually be able to reach a greater number of individuals than we were able to reach pre-pandemic. Next slide, please. The pandemic forced us to shift delivery modes for all of our programs. Navigating graduate school, career and professional development, fellowship application workshops, all of these went online. For some of our programming, student engagement actually increased. So we had more people viewing workshops, videos, blog posts, newsletters than ever before. However, for some high-touch, high-intensity programming, like individual coaching and advising, highly interactive programs, there was a decrease in uptake. So for example, we had a 33% drop in career advising appointments from June through November 2020 when compared to the same period in 2019. I think our challenge has been to try to think through how we can shift and develop new opportunities in the pandemic. So for example, career workshops. We were able to invite participation from people from all over the country and indeed all over the world, which we wouldn't have been able to do if we had to fly individuals in for a face-to-face meeting. And sometimes these workshops were viewed on Zoom by a significantly larger number of people than would have been able to view them had we held them in the Union or in one of our new meeting rooms in the Green Street Graduate College Center. So long term, I think we are going to continue to think through how we can maximize the reach of our programming, and we'll almost certainly use a combination of virtual, hybrid, and face-to-face programming, recognizing that virtual is great for reaching a large number of people, but it may not be sufficient when our goal is to build community among graduate students. Next slide, please. Addressing the impact on admissions and enrollments. The pandemic, in combination with changes in visa regulation and availability, created a huge number of admissions challenges this past year. We needed to ensure regular communication and advising to programs and students. We had to increase the processing of registration forms. We had to shift from shipping to issuing I-20s electronically. And there was a tremendous amount of work involved in making the transition from pre to pandemic operations. In response, we tried to provide units with templates for offer letters and guidances with respect to best practices. We needed to develop a strategy for students who were not able to obtain transcripts, students who did not have access to standardized tests, or students who had unorthodox academic profiles due to alternative grading options implemented by their universities. Despite all of these challenges, this year we have a greater number of graduate students at the University of Illinois registered than we ever have in the history of the university. Each month, Beth Spark and her team provide a detailed monthly application and admission trend report, which we share with the provost and the college deans. And we have a website where every program can take a look at this day in 2021 and compare applications, admissions, and enrollments to 1 year previously, to the next year previously. And that website is updated every evening so that graduate faculty members, graduate staff members can have an up-to-date snapshot of the status of their enrollment. In the long term, we're going to continue to manage the COVID-19 impacts on applications, enrollment, and registration. And I don't think we are ever going to go back to exactly the same way as we did pre-pandemic. For many years, there will be students applying to the university who have transcripts with very few grades or sometimes 0 grades on them because they started their graduate education, their master's degrees in a pandemic where a variety of different credit, no credit grading options were available. We will work with programs to figure out what's the best way to accommodate those students and to maximize success. Next slide, please. I want to switch now to the issues that we are going to prioritize in the graduate college and for graduate education during this year and the years to come. Next slide, please. We're not going to be able to forget about the pandemic. It's not over yet. Hopefully, we're at the beginning of the end, and that widespread vaccinations will enable it to be possible to resume much more face-to-face instruction in the fall of this year than it has been possible for the previous 18 months. However, that's not certain. And many of you will have read the recent message this week from the Chancellor and the messages about instruction from the Provost. We are moving cautiously forward. We're looking forward to resuming something that is much closer to pre-pandemic graduate education. But without question, we're going to have to stay the course, and we're going to have to continue making adjustments and supporting our students and programs in extraordinary ways. Next slide, please. We are committed to launching a graduate student information portal. We would like students to, with a single click of a button, 24/7, know exactly how they are doing in their progress towards a degree. We want them to know what courses they still have to take. We want them to know the status of their qualifying exams, their preliminary exams, their candidacy exams, and their final exams. We want them to be able to submit forms for petitions seamlessly. And we are working very hard to utilize the functionality of the SLATE system to be able to develop a system where students will be able to find out 24/7 where they stand. And we'll be using a traffic light system to let students know if everything is on track and on schedule, green light. If there's something that they need to attend to, orange light. Or if they are in arrears or in violation of a timeline, red light. And we believe that this service will help to improve success, student success. It will give students the information that they need. And ultimately, we hope it's going to increase time to degree. Next slide, please. Oops, you skipped one. Can we go back one, Charlotte? Thank you. I don't think it's a secret that there has been a significant debate about the value and appropriateness of standardized testing at both the undergraduate and the graduate level. At the undergraduate level, exams like the SAT and the ACT have been under challenge, and not only because of the pandemic, but because of perhaps the differential impact they have on some subsections of the population. Many universities are transitioning to becoming test optional. This is also true at the graduate level. We have, at the graduate college, never required the GRE for admission to graduate education at the University of Illinois. But many programs have chosen to require either the GRE general test or even specific GRE subject tests. In recent years, programs have trended away from requiring these examinations, and there's been a movement in favor of looking more holistically at a student's profile. We are committed about communicating with programs about how holistic admission can be implemented at the programmatic level. We're in the late stages of developing a toolkit and a series of workshops that we will share with all departments and programs to help them understand if they are choosing to move towards holistic admission principles, what are some of the tools that are available to them, and how can the Graduate College help them in these efforts? Next slide, please. Building a strong community among directors of graduate studies. You know, for many years, we have communicated with EOs, executive officers, DGSs, and contacts by email. Occasionally, we would send out a mass message to all of those individuals, but we've never really taken advantage of information technology by setting up a site in which best practices, in which information, in which questions can be asked and responded to in real time, creating a virtual community. We think that the time has come to build such a resource and to facilitate a greater amount of daily interaction among faculty members and staff members who have a responsibility and interest in supporting graduate education. So we're in the process of building such a virtual community, and I look forward a year from today to being able to respond to questions and exchange ideas and best practices with each and every one of you in a much more up-to-date and effective means than we have been doing to date. Next slide, please. When I started as Dean of the Graduate College about more than 5 years ago now, we had approximate parity between master's degree students and doctoral students. There were just a little bit over 10,000 graduate students, split fairly evenly, 5,000 doctoral masters. As I mentioned earlier, today the enrollment is over 18,000. And the numbers of doctoral students has remained reasonably stable. So we're just a little bit below 6,000 doctoral students. But the number of master's degree students has exploded to somewhere around 11 to 12,000 master's degree students. Many of those master's students are studying online. Many of them are in what are sometimes labeled professional master's degree programs. One of the advantages of growing master's degrees, and this is not only at our university, but it's nationwide, is that there is a large demand for undergraduate students to supplement their undergraduate degree with a 1 or 2 year master's degree that enables them to upskill for the workforce. Secondly, these master's degrees are often used by non-traditional students, older students who are re-educating themselves for a new position or perhaps for a promotion within their company. Most master's degree students pay tuition. The numbers, I believe, are about 67% of our master's degree students pay tuition, whereas it's something between 3 and 5% of doctoral students pay tuition. For many of our departments, the revenues that they gain from master's degree education, they reinvest into doctoral education, into fellowships and assistantships. And for that reason, we are committed to working with programs to supporting professional master's degree developments where it makes sense, where there's a demand, and where the faculty are excited about developing those kinds of programs. Next slide. We are participating in an AAU project called the AAU PhD Education Initiative. The AAU universities selected 8 universities to participate in this project, and we were fortunate enough to be selected as one of the 8. In the AAU PhD Education Initiative, the goal is to develop a more student-centered doctoral education program that recognizes the value of different career options and opportunities, that is a more welcoming space for students from underrepresented groups. And it's a program that recognizes that there are many different models of successful mentoring of graduate students. We have last year worked with a committee of faculty and students to develop mentoring best practices that we sent to every graduate program to ask them to review and ask them to modify them for the specifics of their particular discipline, and to accept those as their departmental guidelines for mentoring best practices, with duties and responsibilities for not just faculty members, but for students and for programs. I think that we're at a stage where mentoring of graduate students is in a period of flux, and that many different institutions are looking at how we can do this better and differently. And we're committed to continuing this conversation and to providing departments with guidance and insight with respect to how to meet the mentoring needs of our graduate students. Next slide, please. So our goal was to develop a new strategic plan for the next 5 years of graduate education that would align well with the goals articulated in the Next 150. We had planned to begin this past year, but it seemed somehow inopportune to begin strategic planning in a consultative way with many stakeholders when nobody could come together face to face. So we've now made a commitment that we will begin this strategic planning exercise in this academic year. We kicked off with an all-staff graduate college retreat earlier in this semester, and we're looking forward now to expanding the conversations to each of our key stakeholder groups in the fall, when hopefully we will be able to do some of it perhaps face-to-face, and if not, we'll at least be able to do it in an atmosphere where more of us are coming to campus. Next slide, please. Okay, so I've talked to you a little bit about what we have achieved during the past year and what we're planning for this coming year and the years to come. Now, we asked a number of you to please submit some questions that we would be prepared to respond to. And now I'd like to hand it back over to my Assistant Dean for Communications, Charlotte Bauer, who will read some of the questions that have been submitted.
Yes, thank you, Wojtek. So the very first question is one you've spoken to a little bit already, but how can we support the mental health of graduate students?
Yeah, you know, my sense on this is it's a bit like that famous book by Hillary Clinton, It Takes a Village. The graduate college acting on its own is not going to be able to address the mental health needs of graduate students by itself. Students who are in an acute crisis need emergency medical care. They need counseling by health professionals, and we don't provide that in the graduate college, but we do point students to resources available in the Counseling Center, in McKinley, and occasionally in dire emergencies with EMS through 911. I feel that our major role is to communicate what the options are, but also to try to do everything that we can to focus on helping students create a meaningful work-life balance, to help them adopt prevention strategies that decrease the likelihood of them encountering a mental health crisis. The Campus Mental Health Task Force is currently addressing all of these issues to try to think how we can have a comprehensive mental health strategy. And Associate Dean Alexis Thompson is representing us on that task force. And I really believe that there's a campus-wide recognition that much more needs to be done, and that we will be seeing changes and increased resources available to address mental health for all students. Next question, please, Charlotte.
Thank you. The second question is, how can we help international students who are learning remotely to avoid feeling anxiety and frustration?
Yeah. We have a large number of graduate students who have now been Illinois students for 2 semesters and never set foot on our campus, have never been to the Quad, have never even been to the United States. Now, I think we are all living in a time where we're dealing with anxiety and frustrations and challenged in a variety of different ways. But I think some of these challenges might be magnified for international students. They had set their hopes and plans to be here on our campus and are now pursuing their education remotely with unique challenges like working and studying in different time zones and navigating cultural and institutional differences on their own without a supporting network. So we've encouraged all departments and programs to be as inclusive and flexible as possible. This might mean creating opportunities to connect outside of regular hours to accommodate students in different time zones, but it also involves thinking clearly about how to make sure that our communications are clear and accessible and recognize cultural and linguistic differences in communication styles. So for example, it's very difficult for many students from Asian cultures to reach out to authority figures and to ask them for services or assistance. And so I think we have to recognize this, and we have to be especially attentive and proactive to international students. My own laboratory, I'm an exercise scientist, and for many years I ran the Aging and Diversity Laboratory in the Department of Kinesiology and Community Health. I'm still affiliated with that laboratory, and they have students from many different countries working. And we have a Nigerian student who is stuck in Cyprus, unable to go back to Nigeria and unable to come to the United States. And he has been participating in weekly 2-hour lab meetings from the very beginning of the pandemic. And last semester, he taught an undergraduate community health course remotely from Cyprus and received an assistantship stipend. You know, I think one of the most rewarding things is to observe students from many different countries and cultures coming together and interacting with one another and providing a supporting network. So all the different ways that we are able to help students, international students, minimize feelings of anxiety and frustration are equally important, I think, for our domestic students. And it's really about staying in tune and in touch with the needs of our students, reaching out to them, asking many questions, and I believe being as flexible as possible around issues related to deadlines, because many students are also parents and have other important roles that they're participating in, and sometimes life gets in the way. And I think being sensitive to that and being aware of that is something that's hugely important. Next question, Shah.
All right, the next question is, what is the Graduate College doing to ensure that COVID-19 requirements and the campus disciplinary process do not adversely impact graduate students?
So throughout the pandemic, the Graduate College has advocated for policies and communications that take into account the needs of graduate students. It's clear that many graduate students have different life circumstances and participate in combinations of research, teaching, and scholarship as part of their responsibilities. During the pandemic, testing requirements and frequency have been based on recommendations of our SHIELD team of researchers using the data available to them. As additional information becomes available, I am confident that the SHIELD team will make adjustments to the COVID testing policies and protocols dependent on the data and the immediate need. So in the fall, you saw that the testing schedules for faculty and staff and graduate students were reduced from twice a week to once a week, but then increased again with the surge that occurred after Thanksgiving and after Christmas. I am confident that the SHIELD team is observing data, observing positivity ratings, and we will continue to work with the SHIELD team and campus leadership to adjust policies and procedures as needed in order to protect our community. Next question, please.
So the next question is, are there plans to support more community engagement opportunities for our graduate students to explore non-academic careers and to enhance university engagement with the local community?
Yeah, there are a number of very exciting campus-wide efforts in the area of community engagement. The Graduate College has been in close discussions with the We See You program and with campus-wide extension programs about ways to connect graduate students with community engagement opportunities. We help students to put their community engagements in the broader context of their skill sets and career plans through our career exploration resources and services. Community engagement is one of the topics we are exploring as part of the AAU PhD Education Initiative. In a traditional PhD program in many disciplines, there hasn't been room for much community engagement or much career-related internships because a student has been on a research assistantship and tethered to responsibilities in a single laboratory. And one of the things we're excited about exploring with our colleagues in departments is how we can provide students with options to pursue a different pathway as part of their doctoral education. Next question, please.
So the next question, you mentioned something about this earlier. Are there plans to make forms easier to submit electronically?
Yeah, I think it's not just forms. I think it's IT in general. We're committed to providing students with access to information. And once they have that information, if they need to communicate to us about scheduling an exam or requesting an exception or making a petition, to making that process a one-click process available to them 24/7. But I know that my colleagues in admissions, my colleagues in academic policies and programs are also working on the back-end programs that all of you departmental contacts out there know and understand much, much better than I do. But I know that we're committed to making fellowship processing, assistantship processing, application and admission data more easily available and accessible to all of our staff. We are currently undergoing a major revamping of our programmatic dashboards, both internal dashboards and those dashboards that are available to the general public. And I'm excited. I think we will be rolling out a new and improved dashboard program well before the end of this semester. Next slide, please.
Great, thank you. The next question, will there be additional CARES funding for graduate students?
Yes, without question. So those of you who have been following politics in Washington will know that there are two stimulus packages that are currently under discussion. So the HEERF 2 stimulus package was passed in November and December of last year under the Trump administration, and there will be funding coming to the university for distribution to undergraduate and graduate students through emergency grants, and that funding will be announced sometime in the next 1 to 2 weeks. And I anticipate that a little bit more than $2 million will be available for dispersal to graduate students. And I am very pleased to say that we will find a way to make those fundings available to both domestic, international, DACA, non-documented students, so basically all graduate students. Now, many of you have been listening and hearing about the $1.9 trillion stimulus package that just got passed in the Senate a couple of days ago and is now going for a final vote to the House. When, I don't think it's if anymore, when that stimulus bill gets funded, there will be a fairly significant amount of money coming to the university. I've heard say somewhere in the region of $80 million, and about half of that will be allocated for student use. And we are certainly thinking long and hard about the best way to distribute those monies and when it would be most impactful and have provide the biggest support to our departments and our programs. More to come on both of those.
That's very exciting. Our last question is, when will the graduate college open at its new location? Well,
I was going to say we're all moved in. We are definitely moved out of Coble Hall. And, you know, my office, for example, I've unloaded all of my boxes. I've put my photos up on the wall, and I'm ready to go from the Green Street location. Some of my colleagues still have their stuff in boxes in their new office locations because for a variety of reasons, they haven't been able to come into Green Street to make that transition. But we are ready, willing, and able and eager to go as soon as the pandemic makes it realistic and safe for, first of all, people to come in and work in close connection with one another, but also for us to open our doors to graduate students. We are certainly hopeful that we will be able to do that in some form in the fall, pandemic developments allowing. So I think that's all I have, Charlotte.
Thank you so much. And thank you to everyone who sent questions to us in advance. That's the end of our questions. We hope that we will see you at some of the other events this week or other Zoom meetings and interactions in the future. But for now, we will say goodbye and thank you. And if you have any questions, please feel free to contact us at grad@illinois.edu. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much and have a great day. And I look forward to seeing you in some of the workshop sessions later today and on Wednesday and Thursday of this week. Thank you. Bye-bye.